Hello, friends! Can your AI system pass all safety tests and still be vulnerable? The answer is yes. Moreover, some of the most dangerous vulnerabilities may reveal themselves precisely when the system is technically working perfectly. And today, I'll show you how to find them. In this lesson, we'll unpack why automated tests don't see everything, learn to think like an attacker by trying on 3 different masks, and master a 5-step process for adversarial testing. And if AI governance is your thing, be sure to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Let's jump in. But first, a practical scenario. A large healthcare provider has deployed an AI assistant for physicians. The system is integrated with electronic health records and analyzes the full spectrum of inputs to form a complete picture of the patient. Structured data, including diagnosis codes and lab results, and unstructured text data, physician notes, discharge summaries, and patient intake questionnaires. Physicians have noticed that, occasionally, the system recommends complex, experimental, or non-traditional treatment regimens that don't align with disease characteristics. An emergency audit uncovers an anomaly. When the unstructured notes contain a mention that the patient is a healthcare professional, the system changes its recommendations. The team is perplexed. All automated tests have passed. The system is technically functioning correctly. So here's the question. What's the root cause, and how should a mature AI governance program respond? Share your hypotheses in the comments. We'll return to this case at the end of the lesson. So, what is red teaming? It's targeted adversarial testing in which a dedicated team tries to break your system by thinking like a real-world attacker, but in controlled conditions. Why do this if you already have automated tests? Because automated tests have 3 fundamental blind spots. First, the creativity gap. Automated tests check pre-written scenarios and known attacks. A real attacker thinks differently. They chain minor weaknesses into destructive kill chains and probe edge cases you never even considered. Second, emergent behavior. Complex AI systems exhibit behaviors that arise from interactions among components. You can't guaranteeably predict these, so hypotheses about such behavior require experimental validation, not just theoretical analysis. Third, the illusion of completeness. You may have 99% test coverage, but an experienced adversary will find the remaining 1% of untested space. Metrics show what you did check. They don't show what you missed. So let's lock this in. Automated tests provide breadth of coverage. Red teaming provides depth and an adversarial mindset. To surface the full spectrum of vulnerabilities, red teaming proceeds across 3 approaches, as if donning 3 masks. Technical red teaming, the hacker mask. Here the team acts as a classic intruder, attacking code, architecture, and data. This includes attempts to exfiltrate the model via APIs, craft adversarial examples, perform prompt injection, or compromise the supply chain. The second mask, the psychologist, or behavioral red teaming. Here the red team isn't after technical bugs, but weaknesses in system logic and behavior. They probe for discrimination, toxic outputs, misalignment with company values, susceptibility to manipulation, and hallucinations. The third approach, operational red teaming, or the social engineer. Here the team plays the deception specialist, testing the people and processes around the AI. This includes social engineering against employees, hunting for gaps in monitoring and incident response, and verifying human-in-the-loop mechanisms. Remember, real attacks are hybrid, so effective defense combines all 3 types. Red teaming isn't just a good practice. For many high-risk systems, it's a legal obligation. Regulators worldwide increasingly require evidence of adversarial testing. For example, the EU AI Act for High-Risk Systems requires thorough testing as part of risk management. Language that, in legal practice, is interpreted to include red teaming. And for certain categories, you'll also need third-party assessment. Similarly, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, requires adversarial testing as part of the life cycle of AI-enabled medical devices. Reports from such testing become a mandatory part of the market authorization dossier. Thus, red teaming is evolving from a purely technical practice into a key evidentiary element for regulatory compliance. All right, we get why it matters. How do you do it in practice? Red teaming is a structured process in 5 stages. Stage 1. Define scope and rules of engagement. What exactly you're testing, your objectives, what's in and out of bounds, and who must be informed. Here you set clear boundaries, protocols for handling sensitive data, and escalation procedures. Stage 2. The team studies documentation, architecture, and dependencies, conducts recon, observes system behavior, and maps the infrastructure. Red teaming isn't chaos. It's methodical analysis based on collected data. Then the team works iteratively, from simple attacks to compound chains. It's critical to log everything in an attack journal: successes, failures, and near misses. This is your evidentiary record. Next comes the report, including an executive summary for leadership, detailed technical findings, system-level patterns, and recommendations. Crucially, every finding must tie back to your governance system. Which controls and safeguards failed? Which metrics missed the attack? Which life cycle control point should have caught it? Every confirmed vulnerability becomes an entry in the risk register with impact severity, an assigned owner, and mitigation measures. After that, findings flow into risk management. The second line of defense validates remediations. The red team returns for targeted retesting. The full package, report, remediation plan, and retest results, becomes required evidence at the lifecycle control gate. A common refrain, especially in smaller projects, is that full-scale red teaming is expensive. What if the budget is tight? Be pragmatic and scale effort to system risk. For low-risk systems, use open-source adversarial testing tools and run structured team brainstorms. This is accessible to nearly any project. For medium-risk systems, allocate a small internal red team to conduct focused testing using known attack taxonomies such as MITRE ATLAS. For high-risk and regulated domains, run full-scale red teaming and bring in independent external assessors to ensure objectivity and meet regulatory expectations. A special challenge: generative systems. They introduce distinctive issues: effectively infinite input space, subjective harms, emergent behaviors, dialogue dynamics, and agentic operation. These require adapted methods, specialized tooling, and even greater team diversity. But the primary success factor isn't tooling, it's people. Red teaming is only as effective as the team's quality. You need a diverse bench: security practitioners, ML engineers, domain experts, ethics specialists, and representatives of different user groups. The key principle is independence. Organizationally, the red team should sit at the second line of defense, separate from development, yet empowered to test it. Ideally, it's an external expert team. Now back to our case. First, the good news. Harm was prevented thanks to a human-in-the-loop control. A physician reviews and confirms system recommendations, but the system itself failed. Let's unpack why safeguards didn't catch this earlier. Clearly, we're dealing with profession-based bias. The crucial question: whose bias is it? Is this a model-induced error, spurious patterns learned from training data, or is it a faithful reflection of historical clinician practice patterns, for example societal bias, encoded in the data? We've discussed such bias types in prior lessons and know that the second, real-world structural bias, is the hardest to detect and control. Why didn't automated tests catch it? Two reasons. First, they test for bias on standard protected characteristics, like race or sex, where profession typically isn't included. Second, and this is the key point, the profession signal lived in unstructured physician notes, making automated detection of such latent influence exceedingly difficult. That's the very blind spot we called out earlier in this lesson. So how would red teaming have addressed this bias? I invite you to be a red team member for a minute and walk the stages. During recon, we'd discover that the system ingests unstructured text and non-clinical attributes. We'd enumerate such data types, including professions, and consider their influence on recommendations. During execution, a tester would craft controlled probes, altering only that single attribute. This would surface and prove the hidden vulnerability during testing, not in real-world practice. In reporting, we would record not just an error, but the underlying systemic issue of bias. From there, the report becomes a trigger for immediate concrete action. First, incident response procedures. The system is paused or rolled back to a prior safe version. A retrospective audit identifies all patients who may already have received risky recommendations. It's entirely possible a clinician missed an incorrect suggestion. Second, strategic hardening measures. We initiate model retraining on a dataset that has undergone an ethics review. We design and implement a context-aware filter to govern use of non-clinical data. We update our development standard to include a mandatory behavioral threat modeling step. But the key lesson is this: red teaming is not merely bug hunting. It's a structured process that converts non-obvious latent vulnerabilities into a concrete, managed plan to upgrade the entire AI governance system. To conclude, an uncomfortable but critical truth: red teaming does not guarantee absolute safety. It can prove the presence of vulnerabilities, not their absence. And adversaries constantly invent new attacks, so your defenses decay over time. This brings us to the central task: managing residual risk. After you remediate discovered issues, you must escalate the remaining risk and take a formal, documented decision to accept it. Let's recap. Today we examined AI red teaming as the final validation layer for safety. Red teaming addresses the fundamental limits of automated tests through an adversarial mindset. An effective approach blends technical, behavioral, and operational red teaming and is increasingly a regulatory expectation. The process should be pragmatic, scalable, and tightly integrated with your governance artifacts. And most importantly, red teaming is not just testing. It's an independent audit of your governance system and its promises. It doesn't eliminate risk entirely. It makes risk visible, measurable, and manageable. Thank you for your attention, and see you in the next lesson.